How old are you?
37.
26.
51,
40.
31.
49, 29,
45.
Well, at this age, no.
Do I need to? Not yet.
No.
What would happen to your property if you don't have a will?
कभी ये सोचा भी नहीं है कि कुछ होगा करके.
अभी सोचा नहीं मैंने ऐसा होना तो. Is it so important?
But I have thought about it.
It's really important, but I just don't know how to make it.
For most of my financial assets, I have a nominee, but I don't have a will.
Do you have a will?
yeah, of course.
Have you registered your will?
You're not required to register your will. Why would I need a will? तो मेरे तो property नहीं है.
Do you have a salary account?
Yes.
That means you have assets.
Yes.
हाँ, गाड़ी है.
Hello everyone, welcome to the podcast Wills Made Simple. Today in the studio we have Karishma Choksi, who's the will expert.
Thanks so much, Aditi, for having me.
Interestingly, Karishma, today on my way here, I was reading an article which spoke about how there are crores of rupees lying in bank accounts and with insurance companies. It's shocking.
Yeah, absolutely. As families are getting nuclear, children are settling abroad, the family doesn't even know of the existence of these assets. And in the absence of a detailed will or any other documentation that lists all these assets, there is no way of the family knowing that these assets exist. So unfortunately, this number is earth-staggering.
Exactly, Karishma. Most people don't have a will and they don't even know how to divide a lot of things once they are no more. So tell us, what exactly is a will?
Will is nothing but a legal document that states how you want to pass on your assets, to whom and in what proportion. And the important point to note is that a will comes into effect only after you are no more.
Okay, so what all does a will include?
So a will can include any assets that you own, right from real estate to financial assets like mutual funds, fixed deposits, proceeds from insurance policies. You could include digital assets like social media accounts, passwords to your emails. It could also include items of sentimental value, like if you have a recipe book that you want to pass on, or a collection of your stamps, or so anything that you own can be passed on in a will.
What happens if you don't have a will?
So if you don't have a will, the succession law will decide who your assets get passed on to. It is the religion in which you are born that succession law will apply. So for example, for a Hindu, the Hindu succession law will apply. For a Muslim, the Muslim succession law will apply. For a Christian, the Indian Succession Act will apply. It may or may not be in line with what you had wanted. It will go as per what the succession law states.
And at what age do you start writing a will? When can you earliest write the will?
Anyone who is a major, which is above the age of 18 and of sound mind, can write a will. Ideally, as soon as you own a certain number of assets, you should write a will, because life, as you know, is extremely uncertain. You're never too young to write a will. It's always best to start early, have something written down, and you can always change it as many times as you want. And if there are significant events that happen in your lifetime, for example, you get married, there's a divorce, there are children, those are certain points in your life that you need to revisit your will and make modifications if necessary.
So Karishma, does one need to go to a lawyer to make a will?
Not necessarily. You can write a will on your own. You can also use one of the online will writing websites which will help you put in your information in a structured manner and will give you a will, because at the back end they have all the clauses which have been vetted by a lawyer. But of course there are certain situations where it might be prudent to actually see a lawyer if there is some complicated asset holding structures, there are some business assets, there are family members who have different nationalities, then it might be better to see a lawyer to draft the will.
Is will making a very complex thing?
No, contrary to what most people think, it is not a complex thing, because all you need to do is make a list of all the assets you own and decide how you want to pass them on. And then you can either use an online will writing website where you can put in all the information in a structured manner and it will make the will for you. Or then you need to make sure that if you write it on your own, all the important elements that are required to make it a legally valid document are included in it.
Can a will be handwritten?
Yes, of course, you can write it by hand. Most people think that you need to have it on a stamped paper, you need to have it typed, but that's not true. You can write it on any piece of paper, and it can be handwritten as long as your writing is legible and people understand what you've written, so that there's no ambiguity. But absolutely, it can be written by hand.
And can one change their will at a later time in life?
Yes, you can change your will as many times as you want. You can write a will today and tear that up and write another will tomorrow. So you can change it as many times, because a will comes into effect only after the person is no more. So up until then, you can write it as many times. The only thing that you need to take care of is that when you register a will and you write any subsequent wills, then it is better to register the subsequent wills as well.
Okay, so what is registration of a will?
Registration of a will is when the person who's written a will goes to the registrar's office and signs the will in front of the registrar along with two witnesses. What that does is it helps to prove that the will is genuine and it is written by that person who has actually signed in front of the registrar. So much like you register your land documents or any other documents, it's similar to that. But however, registration of a will is not mandatory by law. So even if you don't register your will, it is still a legally valid and binding document.
Okay, so it is something like when I buy a house or when one buys a house,
Yes.
and they have to go and register. But that is a mandatory.
Correct.
With will, you're saying it is not a
It
mandatory.
is not mandatory by law.
So Karishma, it's very interesting that how all of us and everybody spends their entire life accumulating wealth, making a lot of assets, but they actually don't think about what is going to happen to all of that once they are no longer there. How will it get distributed or passed on to their loved ones?
Yes, Aditi, that's a mistake most people make. And at this point, I'd like to tell the audience that it's about being practical. It's about telling your family that I've done this for you. It's not about something morbid. It's just having all your documentation in place so that you leave behind a legacy for your family and not legal battles.
Karishma, for our listeners right now, what is the first step if they want to start writing a will?
The first step would be make a list of all your assets, decide in what proportion you want to give the assets and to whom, and decide on who you want to appoint as an executor for the will. That would be the first step in the will writing process.
So if you're still unsure, you can reach out to Ms. Karishma Choksi to start your journey of will making.
Yes, absolutely.
So on that note, we end this episode of Wills Made Simple. In our next episode, we will cover details on how to write a will, what is an executor, and the common mistakes to avoid when writing a will.